front of all of you for 20 minutes. I have nothing else planned except for that, so buckle up. I'm totally kidding. I have a lot planned and we have a lot to get to, so get serious. We're going to meditate first, just for a couple minutes, and honestly, that's mostly for me, because I need you to close your eyes for a second, so that I can just really get here with you. And first, I just want to let you know, you're always in charge. I think you know that. You know where bathrooms are. You're an adult. You can always go to them. You're also a person with free will, and you can always leave. If something's bothering you, or you just need to not be in this room, that's okay. No one's going to judge you for it. They wouldn't waste their time like that. Okay? And while we're meditating, some days, my friend reminded me of this, Kristen reminded me of this. Some days it's like, close your eyes, come on in, everything's great. And other days, that's the least comforting thing in the world. So if you want to just stare during this meditation, there's nothing weird about that. You can do that too. All right, meditation positions. Let's go. Seated comfortably. If you wanted to find a different spot, you're totally welcome to do that. Close your eyes and keep them open. That's totally on you. And once you find your seat, and you find your vision, start to notice the general atmosphere around you. Is it like in your little bit of space? Without needing to change or manipulate anything, just notice that you're breathing. We're not trying to transcend this clunky earthly plane with this meditation. We're trying to show up where you are, as you already are. Maybe you can hear more clearly with your eyes closed or with your focused vision. Try and welcome in any sounds that you hear. People around us, your own breathing, people next to you breathing, my voice. Let those be things that pass right across your screen of awareness. And those aren't the things that you're going to reach out and snatch and hold on to with your life. You're going to let those things go. And you'll remember the right thing to hold on to. That's just you. If you could, can you take your attention down, all the way down to the pelvic floor, right down to the root of your seat. And then move up a little bit with your awareness, right to your pubic bone. From there, travel up to the bottom of your sternum. Hello, belly. Maybe put a hand on top of the abdominals and a hand on the bottom of the abdominals and really connect to this space. You don't have to do that. You can leave your hands wherever you want. Can you notice what kind of energy is here in your center? You're tight and clenched. We won't count emptying them as sensations. Notice if it's fuzzy or if it's clear. Eastern mystics believe that this is the home of the soul. And when we abuse this area, or we avoid this area, we become somewhat homeless. So I want to see if we can welcome ourselves back in. As you're inhaling, think, I'm in my center. And as you're exhaling, think, I'm releasing anything that doesn't belong to me. As you're inhaling, I'm in my center. And as you're exhaling, release. It's okay to hear yourself breathe. One more time, in my center. Letting everything go. Very slowly, as you inhale, reach arms overhead. As you exhale, take the hands right down your midline into your heart center. Try that all again. Feel your arms move through space. If you touch another person, that's okay. Breathe in, arms overhead. Hands right down your midline, drawing energy right to you. Maybe you start to think about your intention for being in this space, or for being in this life, or being in this day. Sweep the arms overhead, inhale. Hands right to heart center. Chaos will happen. Yesterday was pretty interesting. Lots of things will try and push you out of center. And you will keep remembering what your center is, what your home is. Try and be honest and expressive with me for a second. Take a big inhale. Give back an HA like a seal your mouth for this one. Breathe in. Give an HM like a And then this one is for when you're feeling really intense. Breathe in. Flutter your lips. Relax your hands down into your lap. You can keep your eyes closed, or you can start to blink them open. Welcome back. So how do you feel? Tired. That's real. That's very real. Thank you. See, I already told some of you that if I forget I have a slideshow, you need to say something. Speak up, Amy. That was the chaos. How do you feel? Meditate. How do you feel now? How do you feel now? It was all planned. Okay. And you don't have to feel better. You don't have to feel different. Sometimes I even feel worse because now I'm late for whatever I have to do and I didn't pay attention to myself anyways. It was a total waste of time. Okay, so you're feeling tired. Thank you, one person who answered me. Anyone else? Much better. Works. Meditation works. Calmer. Anyone over here? Centered. Aerated. Aerated. Good one. Really good one. Okay, well, what I did was low-key what I taught already this morning. Practice that on you, 6 a.m. But it's trauma-informed yoga principles. There's a lot we could get into in terms of yoga-informed or trauma-informed yoga, but it basically uses your breath. It uses flow, what we did in the end. It doesn't have to be complicated. Sometimes it uses affirmations like, I am in my center. There's a lot to it, but let's just focus on the 4 pillars because we have 20 minutes and we need to talk about childhood trauma. So, number 1, self-agency. Basically, I low-key gave you this talk at the beginning of the meditation. You're empowered, you're empowered, you're empowered. You can leave, you can make your own choices, you can serve your own best interests. Healthy responses support your choices and your actions. So this is where, as a yoga teacher, I get to step back and check my ego and not force you to have the experience that makes me comfortable. You can always stay, you can always go. Just please don't leave during Shavasana. My head will explode. Very rude. Okay. Body-based observation and inquiry. Basically, we want you to listen to and we want you to watch yourself and we want you to do your best not to judge it. Mind-body connection gets you to feel your body in real time through rhythm and flow, what you did there at the end. Moving on. We all have trauma, and more accurately, according to Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, about 80% of us have trauma. So for you, 20%. Congratulations, you're doing amazing. This is psychological trauma. It's damage to the mind that occurs as the result of a severely distressing event, and it can also be described as just a result of overwhelming amount of stress. It exceeds your ability to cope or integrate the emotions involved with that particular experience. Let me see. So now I'm just going to read off the thousands of different ways that you can be traumatized. Buckle up. Listen close, 20%. There is no hierarchy in trauma, okay? Trauma is trauma, and all of us are going to cope with it differently, and we're going to approach our feeling much different. So it's pretty nervous to come here. It's a lot different talking to all of you when I can be like, child's pose, close your eyes, stop looking at me, and making me uncomfortable. As opposed to you just sitting there watching me, expecting. But I remembered that I love this shit. I love it. It's my everything. I don't love having trauma, and I don't love being been traumatized, but I do love talking about feelings and childhood trauma, so here we go. I'm very lucky. I'm from this family. Those are my two older brothers. It's my Grammy, that's Sophie's Grammy. And that's my mom and my dad, and we had a wonderful childhood on Cape Cod. I was this little happy, big-headed girl. I loved dancing, I loved fun, I loved playing pretend, and I had it really good. Most of my trauma has been body-based. And there she is, very on trend for this moment. I don't know if you can see the jean jacket and the choker. She's killing it. My older cousin used to stay with us for summers. His parents were drug addicts and alcoholics, so my parents would take him in. And this summer, 4th grade, when I was 9, he molested me one night. And this was the first big break in my connection to myself and to my body, and to trusting other people, and to just feeling safe. This is a doozy. I'm so sorry if you can't see this, but just picture like the coolest shirt you've ever seen. And then, if you can see that I got that shirt to match that necklace, if that isn't fashion. Exactly 1 year later to the day, next summer, I almost died when my appendix moved to the center of my stomach and exploded. And I was in intense pain for days, and I kept going back to the hospital, and they kept saying to me, no, sweetie, this is probably just period cramps. And I was like, sir, no, well, this happens every month, mouth. Nope. But finally I ended up in emergency surgery, just cut me open where I said it hurt, and they figured out it was not in fact period cramps, it was a ruptured appendix. They sewed me up, they sent me home, my scar's leaking orange stuff, I'm still in intense pain. I tell them, they said, no, that's phantom pain, and I was like, this feels a lot like real pain, the kind that's like in real time in your body. And again, they were wrong, it was real pain. They hadn't gotten all of the bacteria, poison, whatever happens when your appendix explodes, they didn't vacuum it out. So it was a very real abscess. I ended up back in the hospital for the rest of summer and got to go to the beginning of 5th grade, draining pus and blood out into a bag on my leg. Conversation starter, that one was. So long story short, having a summer of not being believed about my well-being, and very, very real pain. And the summer before that, being molested, I was starting to feel like, what's next, body? What do you got planned for summer of 6th grade? This is gonna be great. You got me in a ton of trouble, and then you tried to kill me. So basically, I couldn't trust my home anymore. But I lived, and I made it to high school. There she is. My parents are loving and wonderful and attentive, and they could see that I was struggling. So they got me tested for learning disabilities, and I got diagnosed with ADHD. And this was back in the time of Ritalin. So they gave me Ritalin, and I didn't notice anything, so that quickly became Adderall, which quickly became the love of my life. That pill was my sun, my moon, my stars, my everything, and it's a life ruiner, I know that. But it was helping me streamline my brain, my chaotic brain. I was like, okay, great, I'll take it. And it was helping me to keep control over my shady, can't be trusted body. So I was running, I was reading, I was achieving, I wasn't getting yelled at by my parents for forgetting things all the time. But mostly, I wasn't eating
I wasn't sleeping, and I wasn't able to feel much other than sadness, rage, and hopelessness. But people were telling me that I looked great, so I tried to just sustain off of their praise and Diet Coke, which went about as well as you might expect. Not well. It went really not well. So, by the end of high school, I ended up as this girl at prom, very sunken. And right after I graduated, I ended up as inpatient at Harmon Eating Disorder Unit at McLean Hospital in Massachusetts. I'm very lucky to have parents and the resources to send me there for help, but I just wasn't ready for help. I was diagnosed with a combo deal of periods of restricting and deep periods of binging and purging. I think there's a new name for it now, but it was called eating disorder, not otherwise specified. So I did these 30 days just to appease my parents, and I hurried off to college, just desperate to keep up with my peers. I take all my demons and I pack them up with me, and I go off to Providence College, and I found so many new ways to cope, and so many ways to self-destruct. I basically jumped in any vehicle that I thought would take me away from my pain, whether it was chain smoking, boys who treated me poorly, drinking, eating, not eating, throwing up. I ended up dropping out of 2 colleges and then doing that whole thing where you just move, and if you move fast enough, your problems can't catch up to you. So this went on for about 6 years, and I ended up as this girl who was very not well, to say the least. Thank you, talk therapy. I have always had this ability to talk about my traumas and my mishaps and share them, and I credit it with being immersed in talk therapy literally the night that I was assaulted by my cousin. My father was distraught and he didn't know what to do, so he called his therapist and he put her on the phone with me. And I don't know this woman, and I hear this woman's voice, and she just keeps saying to me very firmly, "It's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. Do you hear me? It's not your fault." And I don't know what she's talking about, and I hand the phone back to him, and it took me a very long time to figure out what she's talking about, but I mostly get it now. And thanks to heroes like Brene Brown, we know that shame needs secrecy, it needs silence, and it needs judgment. So that's why, a good part of why, I would want to stand up here and share with you that you can't solve chaos with more chaos. I've tried so many different ways. And it just doesn't work. My eating disorder perfectly mirrored how I did choose to deal with chaos. I would frantically try and control it, and then when that inevitably failed, I would just merge with it and become the chaos. And then berate myself for inevitably becoming the fuck up that I always knew I was. Now, a lot of you know me in real life, or you followed me on Instagram, and I've shared my stories with you there. So if I were to flip to the next side and make it into the article I was trying to make it into, which was like, 5 ways I've overcome my chaos, I feel like some of you might be like, liar! She's funny. That's just not me, not who I am. That's me, confidently messy. I'm still a temperamental woman with untreated ADHD now. No more Adderall, thank you. And oftentimes my knee-jerk reaction to life and its uncertainties is to just burn it all down. But that's actually really good to know. Everything is temporary and it's all workable. My boyfriend actually said that this statement to me about my clothing choices one day early in the morning, that I was just the most confidently messy dressed person he'd ever seen. But I think that that's actually a perfect description of how I am, because there's power and there's healing in owning your mess. I try and live my life by the sage words of the prophet Drake. He says, know yourself, know your worth, know your trauma, and use it to heal yourself and others. I added the last part, but he would have said it. He would have said it. So back to stories. I was doing that thing where I moved and I moved and I moved, and I hoped my problems wouldn't find me. So I decided, I know, I'll move as far away as I can. I'll move to San Francisco. And my dad said to me before I'm leaving, you know, sweetie, you're the same asshole when you get off the plane as you were when you got off the plane, but good luck. And I was like, cool, mom, hug. Thanks. So I'm walking around by my new apartment, and I saw that a yoga with people had opened up within walking distance. And this is the same yoga with people that I had found at FIT when I was in New York. The same yoga with people that I had that moment at the end that a lot of people have, where you connect with yourself, like really, right there, and you're laying on the ground, and that's all that's happening. And you're not triggered to associate it with some dangerous stillness or some paralysis that you felt at other points in your life. So I felt that moment of just, I'm okay, I'm in my body, I'm here. And luckily, since I can get addicted to anything, I got addicted to finding more of that. And I fell out of touch with it when I left New York, but it's like, it found me, I have to go back. And I go back, and it's magic. I'm convinced that yoga is some type of wizardry, witch magic, and I just didn't know why else to or how else to describe that. Every time I left, I felt sturdier and I felt more myself. We actually know now, thanks to neuroimaging, that it is magic, but it's also science. Areas of the brain involving self-awareness get activated by doing yoga, and those are the areas that get locked out by trauma, and those are areas you need in order to heal that trauma. There's many other things that, that yoga does for your brain, but this is a hot one. So, this is basically what yoga did for me. Janine Roth, I talk about her all the time. She's a wonderful, wonderful writer. Eventually, we see that it was the investment in brokenness, the constant effort to fix ourselves. That was the very thing that kept the wholeness at bay. Yoga was the first vehicle in my adult life that brought me back to myself instead of further away. It was like going to dance when I was a kid. It was that reconnection to joy and expression and freedom, and it was an hour where I wasn't trying to fix myself or change myself for once. And it reconnected me to that capital S, self, the one that's like, I know what I want, I know what I need, and I know who I am. Yoga gives me moments like I had in my friend Meredith Williams' class one day, about 6 months ago. I was in this big back bend pose wheel, and I dropped down and put my hand on my heart and my hand on my belly, and I closed my eyes, and your body's having this big reaction to it. I'm listening to my heart, and I hear this little voice inside of me say, I believe you. And I had no idea how much I needed to hear that message, and I just cried for the rest of that class, and it was one of the most moving moments I could have possibly had in a yoga room, and that's kind of what it does for you. So I'm practicing yoga, I'm feeling better, and in my very narcissistic 23-year-old brain, I'm still thinking that this yoga studio moved from New York to San Francisco to find me so that I would become a yoga teacher, and that I could spread this message to all girls with eating disorders and low self-esteem. You don't have to live this way. There's another way. You don't have to hate yourself. So I took teacher training at Yoga to People, and I began teaching for them right away while I was still nannying full-time. And both of these things had me deeply entrenched in the act of service and taking care of others with this big love. Holy shit, that was healing and challenging. Try reasoning with a toddler, I dare you. It doesn't work. You can't, you'll lose that battle every time. So yoga gave me confidence. It got me back in touch with my body and existing on this plane in real time. The studio environment gave me a sense of belonging, and service got me out of my own way. It gave me purpose, and it connected me to something bigger than myself. If you've ever been to Yoga with People, this is their motto. It's pretty long, I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but essentially it's just an announcement of straight up acceptance. Accessibility, and you are enough. It basically says what I say to you in class all the time. It's all welcome. It's all welcome. As I retaught people, I was reteaching myself. This goodness is for everyone. It was critical to understanding my no matter whatness and your no matter whatness. No matter what, you are worthy, you are enough, and you are loved. The Yoga for Trauma teacher training that I took a couple years ago taught me that serving is very different from fixing. When I serve, I see the wholeness in the other person and I respect the integrity of life within them. They clarified that for me, but my brother very much demonstrated this for me. Last spring, I was having a really hard time, and I went back east to see my brothers, and we went to the Children's Museum with one of their families and some of our friends, and I could feel one of my crying jags coming on. And so I ran away from them all, and I found a corner where I could cry and hopefully not have the kids see me. And then in the next moment, I felt a hand on my back, and I turned and I saw my older brother's face lovingly just staring at me and rubbing my back, and not an ounce of judgment on his face. And I said, I'm sorry, and I tried to explain, and he told me, it's okay, you don't have to explain. And then I cried even harder, and he said, don't you remember when we lived in New York together, and I broke down outside of your apartment, and you did the same exact thing for me. You stood there, and you held your hand on my back, and you let me cry. Because that's what we do for each other. We are a human life preserver for one another. When you are convinced you are drowning, be that flotation device for somebody. Hold them up. And you know who I think says it best? Yes, you do. Glennon Doyle. People who are hurting don't need avoiders. They don't need protectors or fixers. What we need are patient, loving witnesses. People to sit quietly and hold space for us. People to stand in helpful vigil to our pain. And one more just for good measure. The journey is learning that pain, like love, is simply something to surrender to. It's a holy space we can enter with people, but only if we promise not to tidy up. And that's how I hope to show up for you in class, and that's how I hope to show up for you in life. That we're all in this chaos together. It's really messy. But I promise never to try and fix you, because you're not broken. No matter what happened to you or what anyone did to you, you're not ruined. You never were, and neither was I. Thank you.